Hi everybody, my name is Lindsay Brandenburg and I am going to be talking to you today about some herbal remedies for intestinal permeability. A little bit about myself and why I chose this topic. I am actually a nutrition student who came into this class with very minimal knowledge about herbal medicine. My only experience was really with a few culinary herbs that I knew some of the medicinal properties, but I really used more from a culinary standpoint. So this class has been really interesting for me because I've kind of been experiencing all of these herbs as we go along for the first time because, like I said, I didn't really have a lot of experience with any herbal remedies before we got started. So that being said, what I've kind of done, with this presentation is taken something that I see a lot in the nutrition world and have kind of applied some of the herbal knowledge that I've gained from this class to it to kind of help boost, the healing properties of what I do in the nutrition clinic. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of an overview about intestinal permeability, why I think it's important, what causes it, and then discuss some of the ways, to kind of heal and repair using both diet and then herbs for extra support as well. So an overview of the gut health. There's a really strong connection between digestion and your immunity. It's said that 70% of your immunity is actually in your digestive system. So, that really shows you the importance of gut health and overall health in the body. So what we have an image of here is what's called the brush border, which is just basically the lining of your intestinal walls. And in a healthy brush border, what you're going to see on the left-hand side there is all of those cells are kind of right flush up against each other. There's no gaps in between, and they're held together by normal tight junctions, which keeps those gaps from forming. Over time, chronic poor digestion, stress, use of certain medications all can cause damage to this brush border, and that results in what you see on the right-hand side. You've got some tiny gaps in between those cells, which results in not as strong of a barrier as you had before. These gaps in the tight junctions allow particles to leak through, and that is what we call intestinal permeability or leaky gut. So some of the implications of it, it allows large undigested food particles to sneak through, which are unrecognized by the body. This triggers antibodies and cytokines to attack them, which in turn trigger lymphocytes to help fight them off. And this entire process creates a lot of oxidation and inflammation. And when you think about it, how often you eat, if this is happening every single time, regardless of the food you're eating, that's going to be a lot of system-wide inflammation that you're creating in your body. Second, food particles are not fully digested. So what this does is it reduces nutrient absorption. You're not digesting and assimilating all those vitamins and minerals that you would normally be getting from your food. So that's definitely something you'd want to correct as well. And finally, these disease-causing bacteria and various toxins can actually fit through the damaged brush border, so they go right to the bloodstream, bypassing the usual checkpoints that are meant to destroy and eliminate them. So some of the causes of intestinal permeability are abnormal gut flora, dysbiosis, unmanaged food allergies. For example, someone with celiac disease spends 5 years eating wheat or gluten because they haven't been diagnosed properly. That's causing a lot of damage and inflammation and can contribute to intestinal permeability. Antibiotic use, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, NSAIDs, those actually, it's kind of ironic because they're used to treat a lot of inflammatory conditions, but they actually do a lot of damage to the intestinal lining. Chronic stress and enzyme deficiencies all contribute. Some conditions associated with intestinal permeability or leaky gut are seen here. You've got a pretty wide range of things: autoimmune disease, Crohn's, IBS, allergies, inflammatory diseases, even skin conditions like psoriasis, eczema, and acne. So when it comes to healing intestinal permeability, there's really kind of, 3 things that I'm always looking to do when I'm in the clinic. And the first one is going to be reducing inflammation. The second is healing the intestinal lining. And the third is just supporting overall digestion. So some of the interventions that I've used in the past would be eliminate trigger foods, incorporating a whole foods diet. And then more recently, I've started kind of supporting the gut healing and digestion with some of the herbs I'm going to talk about. So the first step, reducing inflammation. A big part of this is removing triggers because you want to prevent any further damage and allow healing to begin. So with diet, that means removing allergenic foods and processed foods. And then with herbs, what I have found is, as I mentioned before, leaky gut creates so much inflammation that just having an anti-inflammatory diet probably isn't enough. So herbs are a great support to the nutritional process here because they're really going to give you that extra anti-inflammatory boost that is really going to allow the body to heal much more quickly and effectively. So the herb we're going to talk about is turmeric. The part used is the root, and it is an antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, immunomodulant, and aromatic bitter. So it's great for reducing some of that inflammation and for gobbling up some of those free radicals that are created in the inflammatory process. Another great thing about turmeric is the bitter component and the immunomodulant component. As I briefly touched on, digestion is a huge thing, so having that bitter aspect is great. And then because the gut is so important in immune health, having immunomodulant to help support the immune system is also just an added bonus of an herb that's really helping to quell some of the inflammation that's going on. As far as the preparation goes, I think about 1.5 grams and 100 milliliters of water. Some safety considerations: it should not be used in those who have gallstones or used during pregnancy. And taking higher than the recommended dose could cause some GI irritation, which we're obviously trying to correct in this case, so you definitely want to be careful of that. So the next step is going to be healing the intestinal lining, and this is really going to help the body work back towards optimal health. So as far as diet goes, the two big things that we'll usually focus on are replenishing the gut flora and then just helping the body heal itself. Again, this is one of those cases where herbs really provide that extra boost to kind of speed the healing process. You certainly, if your entire intestinal wall is damaged, that's a lot of work to repair. And diet alone is great, but when you have herbs that can help support that process and speed that process up, it's a great tool to have as well. So what we're going to talk about as far as that goes is slippery elm, and the part that's used is the inner bark. And slippery elm is a mucilaginous herb. It's a demulcent and an antitussive, so it's great for inflammatory conditions of the upper GI. And what you have here is when it combines with water, it kind of creates this like slick gel that really helps to coat and soothe the intestines, so it can really help get that healing process going. It also has some anti-inflammatory properties, which is a great added bonus to help with that first step of healing that we're working towards. And the preparation here would be 1 to 3 teaspoons powdered herb in 1 cup of water. It's generally overall a safe herb, but it might affect the absorption of some medications. So it's certainly something to be aware of. Take about an hour apart from any oral medications just to be sure that it's not affecting the absorption of those medications. So finally, the last step that I usually work on is supporting digestion. We've kind of calmed some of the inflammation, we've started working towards healing the gut, and now we want to make sure that we are digesting our food as properly as possible so that that brush border is not getting assaulted by giant food particles that should have been more digested by the time they got there. This is the one category, I mentioned in the 2 previous categories, there's a lot you can do with diet, and herbs kind of give it that extra boost, whereas in this category, I feel like it's herbs kind of are what you really can work mainly with, and then dietary habits can kind of give you that extra boost. So as far as diet, you want to eat simple meals, make sure you're chewing your food, and certainly consider digestive enzymes. And then herbs are really going to help support overall healthy digestion. So the herb we're going to look at for that today is going to be gentian root, and the part used here is the bark. Gentian is great because it's a bitter tonic and it's a digestive secretagogue, so it's really going to be useful for supporting overall digestion and for those with low stomach acid. It's basically just going to support the body and helping to release some of those digestive enzymes so we can really help support healthy overall digestion. And this is, going to help break down those food particles as much as possible so those nutrients can be better assimilated into the body. Preparation here would be about 1 to 2 milliliters of a tincture, and you're going to want to take that before meals, again, so you can help get those digestive secretions moving. As far as safety goes, it should be avoided in those with peptic ulcers, and it has been shown to cause headaches in those who are hypotensive, so care should also be taken there. So that is my presentation on diet and herbs for intestinal permeability. As I mentioned in the beginning, I found this one particularly interesting because as a studying nutritionist, diet is kind of where most of my knowledge is, but I've kind of found throughout this semester that this is one instance where you certainly have a much stronger healing power if you combine diet as well as herbs. And I also found it particularly interesting because I found that in some areas of healing and working with intestinal permeability, diet kind of takes the forefront and herbs are used to support it. And then other areas of healing intestinal permeability where herbs really take the forefront and then diet is kind of used as a secondary to support. This is one of those conditions that I see all the time, and it's kind of sparking my interest and making me wonder how many more conditions that we work with nutritionally that can really be supported and benefited from using herbs. So it's certainly something moving forward that I will absolutely incorporate into my practice. So I just want to close with this quote that I found and I really enjoyed as I was going through everything. Thank you very much for listening to my presentation, and enjoy the rest of your day.